"What do you think you're doing with that M24? A young soldier laughed loudly when he saw the skinny girl fumbling with the scope adjustments. "Step aside and let the real shooters handle this." She didn't respond, just quietly adjusted the rifle. 10 minutes later, a Navy SEAL walked up, looked straight at them and said, "Don't be stupid. She taught me. In Kandahar." Main character: Elena Hart, 41 years old. Thin build, deep eyes, hair tied back neatly, always wearing old training clothes with no rank insignia. She worked quietly at Fort Parker shooting range as a technical assistant, specializing in cleaning rifles and checking equipment for sniper trainees. Every morning she arrived early, cleaning scopes herself, adjusting simulation rifles. Nobody asked, nobody cared. The young trainees whispered behind her back, "Does that woman even know anything about sniping? She's probably only kept around for diversity points." Once, when she touched an M24 to adjust the scope tension, a trainee laughed loudly. "Do you think you're adjusting hunting binoculars?" Elena didn't respond, just gently turned the scope angle back. After that day's training session, she left a small handwritten note on the board. "Wind 5.6 meters per second. Right drift 4 MOA. Try readjusting the sight angle." The next day, more mockery. "She thinks she's some kind of instructor. Probably never even held a real rifle in combat." Elena continued her routine. Arrive early, clean equipment, make quiet adjustments, endure the laughter. But something strange happened. The trainee who had mocked her loudest, Private Jackson, secretly tried following her scope adjustment note. Result: bullseye, dead center. For 3 days straight, he hadn't been able to hit anything close to the red zone. Now he was hitting perfect shots. Jackson started paying attention. Every time Elena stood nearby, rifles didn't malfunction. Scopes seemed perfectly calibrated. Wind calculations were always accurate. He began digging through old files in the archive room. What he found changed everything. A classified internal report buried deep in storage. Elena Hart, sniper instructor, 2009 mission, Pakistan, 19 special ops trainees, 0 casualties, evaluation, legendary level training capability. The report was signed by Colonel Morrison, dated 6 years ago. Jackson's hands shook as he read further. Instructor Hart's unconventional methods resulted in a 97% mission success rate among her trainees. Recommended for advanced combat instruction roles. But there was more. A medical report attached. Severe PTSD following incident in Kandahar. Recommended for non-combat support roles only. Jackson realized something horrifying. They'd been mocking a war hero. CTA ACT-1. Ever seen a skilled person get underestimated? Type SOUNFAIR. Rumors spread like wildfire. She failed the psychological evaluation. Heard she once got a teammate injured because of a missed shot. That's why they demoted her to equipment maintenance. Elena never responded to the gossip. She just kept working, quietly, efficiently. But Jackson couldn't stop thinking about that report. He started watching Elena more carefully. He noticed things others missed. Every rifle she touched performed flawlessly during training. Her wind calculations, scribbled on scraps of paper, were always mathematically perfect. She could identify scope misalignments just by looking at them from across the room. One morning, Jackson deliberately messed up his rifle's scope alignment. Within minutes, Elena had quietly fixed it, without being asked, without saying a word. "How did you know it was off?" Jackson asked quietly. Elena looked at him for a long moment. "The way you were compensating, your shoulder position, you were overcompensating for a sight that was pulling left." Her answer was so technically precise that Jackson felt embarrassed for ever doubting her skills. During a regional marksmanship evaluation, a special forces team unexpectedly arrived to observe the training. One of them, Staff Sergeant Thomas Grant, spotted Elena from across the range. She was quietly cleaning a Barrett rifle, her movements methodical and professional. Grant stopped walking. His face went pale. He whispered to his commanding officer, "Sir, that woman, she's the reason I'm still alive." The officer looked confused. "The equipment tech?" "No, sir. She's Elena Hart. She trained me when I lost my left eye in Kandahar. She taught me how to shoot with one eye when everyone else said I was finished. Grant walked slowly toward Elena. Other soldiers noticed and started following. Elena looked up from the rifle she was cleaning. For a moment, her composed expression cracked slightly. "Sergeant Grant," she said quietly. "Ma'am," Grant replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I never got to thank you properly." The training range fell silent. Everyone could sense something significant was happening, but they didn't understand what. Jackson stepped forward. "Elena, what's going on?" Elena set down the rifle. "It's complicated." Grant turned to address the crowd that had gathered. "This woman saved my career. When I lost my eye to shrapnel, every instructor said I was done. Finished. But Elena, she developed techniques that nobody else even knew existed." He paused, his voice growing stronger. "She taught me how to compensate for depth perception loss, how to calculate wind drift with limited vision, how to maintain accuracy under conditions that would break most snipers." The young trainees who had been mocking Elena just hours earlier now looked stunned. "She trained me for 6 months, unpaid overtime, weekends, holidays, because she said every soldier deserves a chance to serve." Grant's voice carried across the silent range. 3 years later, I used her techniques to save my entire squad in Afghanistan. 12 men came home because of what she taught me." Elena remained quiet, uncomfortable with the attention. But Grant wasn't finished. "Ma'am, with your permission, I'd like to tell them about the others." Elena shook her head slightly. "That's not necessary, Sergeant." "Ma'am, it is necessary, because respect isn't something you ask for. It's something you earn, and you've earned it 100 times over." CTA Act 2. Ever misjudge someone completely? Type, "I was wrong." The next day, the training center organized a 1,000-yard precision shooting test. Each trainee got 3 attempts. Nobody hit the bullseye. The head instructor, Major Williams, laughed loudly. "Anyone else want to try?" Looks like the whole class failed. Elena stood up, holding her personal rifle, an old worn M24 with gray tape wrapped around the stock. "Give me one attempt." The entire range erupted in laughter. "Shoot some coffee cans, maybe. This should be entertaining." Elena calmly walked to the firing line, checked the wind conditions, and began making precise adjustments to her scope. The laughter gradually died down as people watched her methodical preparation. She lay prone, controlled her breathing, and settled into position with the fluid movements of someone who had done this thousands of times. First shot, the target spun slightly. Perfect bullseye. Second shot, split the previous hole exactly in half. Third shot, the target center was completely destroyed, torn apart like surgical precision. Complete silence. Major Williams stared at the target through binoculars, his face pale. Sergeant Grant stepped forward, his eyes never leaving the destroyed target. "In 2010, I lost my left eye to shrapnel. The Army wanted to discharge me. Nobody would train a half-blind sniper, except her." His voice carried across the silent range. "She didn't just teach me how to aim. She taught me how to survive." Grant turned to face Elena, then came to attention and saluted. "Ma'am, I request permission to properly acknowledge my instructor." Elena looked uncomfortable but nodded slightly. Grant's voice rang out. "Ladies and gentlemen, you've been in the presence of Elena Hart. In her active duty career, she trained over 200 special operations snipers." The crowd was mesmerized. "Her trainees have a 94% mission success rate, the highest in military history." He paused, letting that sink in. "She retired from active training after Kandahar, where she saved 17 coalition soldiers in a single engagement. She received the Silver Star, the Bronze Star, and 3 Purple Hearts." Jackson felt sick to his stomach, remembering every joke, every dismissive comment. Grant continued, "She's been working here quietly, fixing our equipment, improving our training materials, and watching us fail at skills she mastered decades ago." The young trainees who had mocked her now looked devastated. "Ma'am," Grant said, turning back to Elena, "these soldiers didn't know, but they do now." Elena picked up her rifle and began walking toward the equipment room. "Wait," Jackson called out. "Elena, we owe you an apology." Elena stopped but didn't turn around. "You don't owe me anything. You're here to learn." "Learn? But we treated you terribly." Elena finally turned, her expression calm but firm. You treated someone you didn't understand. That's human nature. What matters is what you do now that you know better. Major Williams, still stunned, managed to speak. Elena, I had no idea about your background. Why didn't you tell us? Because respect earned through revelation isn't respect. It's fear of consequences. The range remained silent as Elena continued. I'm not here for recognition. I'm here because good soldiers deserve good training. Whether you knew my background or not shouldn't change that. She gestured toward the destroyed target. That shot wasn't about proving anything to you. It was about proving something to myself, that I still remember why precision matters. Elena headed toward the equipment room again, but this time, every single person on the range stood at attention. Not because they were ordered to, but because they finally understood who they'd been dismissing. CTA Acid 3. Ever owed someone gratitude you never expressed? Type, I owe someone. The next morning, Elena arrived early as always. She cleaned rifles, made notes, declined the official recognition ceremony. But this time, 6 trainees were waiting in the corner of the range. Elena, could you show us how you made those shots yesterday? She smiled slightly, setting down her notebook. Only if you're ready to learn like you know nothing. We do know nothing, Jackson admitted. That's what we learned yesterday. Elena nodded approvingly. Good. That's the first requirement for real learning. Over the following weeks, Elena began unofficial training sessions. Small groups, early mornings, advanced techniques. She taught them things not found in any manual. How to read microwind patterns, how to compensate for barrel heat expansion, how to maintain accuracy under extreme stress. The technical equipment room got a new wooden sign, Heart Training Area, where survivors learn to help others survive. Elena never asked for it. Someone just put it up. A month later, Elena submitted her resignation. No farewell ceremony, no medal presentation. In her personal locker, she left a handwritten note. You don't need to know who I used to train. You just need to remember, never underestimate someone simply because they stay quiet. Jackson found the note and shared it with the others. Major Williams tried to convince Elena to stay, offering her an official instructor position with full rank restoration. Elena declined politely. I've done what I came here to do. Which was what? Williams asked. Remind people that the most important lessons often come from unexpected teachers. On her last day, Elena arrived early one final time. She cleaned every rifle in the armory, calibrated every scope, and left detailed maintenance notes for her replacement. As she packed her personal rifle, Sergeant Grant appeared one last time. Ma'am, one final question. Why did you really come here? To this training facility? Elena looked thoughtful for a moment. Because I heard young soldiers were struggling with precision shooting, and I remembered what it felt like to struggle. So you came to help? I came to serve, same as I've always done. Elena walked toward the exit, carrying her worn rifle case. At the door, she turned back once. Remember, the quietest person in the room might be the one with the most to teach. CTA ASE 4. Believe skilled people deserve respect? Type, I'll live better. Elena Hart never needed anyone to stand behind her, because for 15 years she had been standing behind the best soldiers in the world. She wasn't seeking glory. She was seeking precision, because for her, every missed shot could cost a life. You might laugh at someone because they don't say much, but when they finally act, you realize they've been quietly saving more lives than you ever imagined. Respect doesn't require applause. It just requires you to pause and ask, where did you learn to do that?